All right, so we're back again. Thanks for joining in. We are bringing into light about the accounting profession and sharing success stories of folks like Jerry Maginnis today. So, Jerry, thank you so much for taking time out and doing this. So, please tell us a little bit about yourself right now.
Yeah, good morning, Chris. Great to be with you today. Sure. So my background is I am a CPA. I'm sort of an auditor by background and training. I spent my career with KPMG in their Philadelphia office and had a chance to work on a lot of great and interesting clients, large, small, public, private, different industries. Later in my career, I got asked to take on some leadership roles. So I had an opportunity to be the partner in charge of our audit practice for about 6 years. And that included our offices in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh. And then for about the last 8 years of my career, I served as the Philadelphia office managing partner. So had a chance to work with our colleagues in advisory and tax, sort of represent the firm in the market and in the community. That was a great experience. We had about a thousand folks in our Philadelphia office, so good sized office. Since retiring from KPMG a couple of years ago, I've joined a couple of boards. I'm serving on the board of a public technology company, a mutual fund complex. I'm also doing some consulting work, but also have been spending time helping out a university not too far from where I live here in Southern New Jersey called Rowan University. And I have a role there called executive in residence. I support their accounting program. I do that by, giving some guest lectures on topics like ethics, current developments in accounting and auditing, careers in accounting. I've also been chairing their accounting advisory board, but mostly, Chris, I spend time trying to be a resource to the students there. And over the years, I've met with dozens and dozens and dozens of students, to try and help them address their future aspirations, hopes, concerns, maybe lend a hand in getting that first internship or respond to really what's on their mind. So that's been a great experience, and that's largely some of what I've been up to since retiring from KPMG a few years ago.
But how did it all get started, right? Was this something where the profession was within your family? Did somebody inspire you early on? Did you just kind of get stuck in this? I mean, I've heard it all, and so I'm interested to see how you got started.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia, one of six kids, attended St. Joe's University, so the hawk will never die. Uh, but at the time I was attending high school, the country was in the middle of a recession, and we had a lot of inflation. It was back in the 70s, and so I was looking for a field that would provide some stability, and I did a little research and heard good things about accounting being that type of profession. But quite honestly, Chris, I sort of got lucky because while I did some research before choosing to major in accounting, I probably didn't do thorough research. So, but once I get into it, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I felt like I had a little bit of an inclination towards it. My advice to younger people today is, and I did not do this, but if you can get an internship when you're in college, that's a great way to sort of test drive your field of study and your major, because it's one thing to like it in the classroom. It might be a very different thing once you get out on the job. So to the extent you can experience that real world environment while you're still studying, it's a great way to validate you've made a good choice, or find out sooner rather than later that maybe it wasn't such a good choice. But in my case, I eventually started working, and fortunately I enjoyed it like I thought I would, and wound up being a terrific career.
So looking back then to where the accounting profession is now, do you think it has moved towards, is it moving in the right direction? Has it gone backwards? Do you think that there's some more changes that will be coming in the foreseeable future? What are your thoughts being in the profession this long now?
Sure. So, having spent a career in the profession, I experienced quite a bit of change. When I started out, we literally used pencils and paper. We didn't have, hard as it may be for younger folks to believe, we didn't have all the powerful technology that exists today. So we certainly didn't have laptop computers or mobile devices. So I feel like, Chris, in my career, I experienced, significant change, but I tell younger folks today, students just entering the profession, that they're going to experience multiples of the change that I did because the pace of change is accelerating.
Oh
It's
yeah.
being driven by technology, and I actually think that's great news, right? I tell young folks, embrace change.
Yeah.
Technology is actually your friend because it's going to eliminate a lot of those lower level kind of menial tasks that had to be done manually in the old days. It's going to facilitate you being able to take on higher level, more challenging and interesting work at a younger point in your career. And it's going to position you to learn and develop your skill sets and do a lot more things, make much bigger contributions perhaps than accountants did decades ago.
Right, exactly. And now you're working with students, and it inspired you to write your most recent book and working with them. And honestly, this is kind of the idea behind this series is to let folks know that this profession is awesome. There's so much that you can do. And so the inspiration from the students initiating this book here, can you talk a little bit about the reason behind you sharing this story with us?
Sure, Chris. So, as I mentioned, one of the things I spent a lot of time on at Rowan is just talking with students, trying to be a resource to students, and answering the many questions on their mind. And I guess one day, about 3 years ago, I met with a student, and um, they walked out of my office, and I said, a lot of this advice I'm providing, there's some common themes and questions on the student's mind. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to create a resource that might be broader than just the work I'm doing here at Rowan and maybe be helpful to students really across the US and beyond. So that was the beginning of a book I wrote, which you mentioned. The title of the book is Advice for a Successful Career in the Accounting Profession. Publisher is Wiley. It was released in October of 2021, so about 6 months ago. And, it seems to be getting a pretty good reception on college and university campuses where students are studying accounting, as well as, firms of all sizes, some of whom are using it in their recruiting or training activities, and also accounting organizations like state CPA societies, are finding it, I think, a helpful resource relative to the pipeline issue. The book has a section 1, which is focused largely on advice for those students. But the bulk of the book, sections 2 and 3, really address early career professionals and try to provide some useful, practical advice and tips for folks in that first 4, 5, 6 years of their career. I will tell you that there's nothing in the book about debits and credits. It's much more focused on soft skills and how to be successful once you're out in the workforce. So, by
Mhm.
way of example, some of the chapters, there's a chapter in there about developing your communication skills. There's a
Mhm.
chapter about the importance of working with others, working effectively with others. There's a chapter called Relationships, 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 where I basically make the point it's all about relationships. There's a chapter in there called Have a Value Creation Mindset. So it's a lot of practical, hands-on advice. And throughout the book, Chris, I share, a lot of my own personal experiences and anecdotes from my career that are designed to sort of reinforce the advice. One other thing your listeners should know about the book, when I was writing it, I was very mindful of the fact that young people today, get a lot of information from these devices, right? Whether it be a text message or a social
Yeah.
media post, they're used to reading kind of short and sweet. They don't like long, detailed, 400-page volumes of dense text. So with that in mind, I kept the book short and sweet. The whole thing's 160 pages. I was going for succinct, concise, and practical. And the individual chapters tend to be 6, 8 pages. Literally, you could read a chapter in 10 minutes. So I think it's designed to be user friendly and an easy read. And if people want to know more about it, it's obviously available on Amazon, or if you just Google the title, it'll pop right up.
And it's very relevant because there's a new workforce in place now, right? As we moved into the accounting profession has moved into a remote virtual environment where folks want flexibility and they want it's more about, I see it as candidates going to the firm and saying, what can your firm do for me? Right. And I don't think firms are ready for that just yet, simply because it's always been about the most billable hours and working a lot and proving yourself over time. But now it's kind of been flipped. Right. And so you providing some of that guidance there is very relevant for folks to understand the profession, where it was, where it is, and where it's going, and how to, work within it. And it
Yeah, I
doesn't
actually
need.
have a chapter in the book, Chris, that is about work-life balance,
Yeah.
and provides a pretty candid assessment of what the profession's all about in that regard. And
Yeah.
one of the points I make, which you alluded to, is that the world has changed. I think employers, accounting firms of all sizes, from the big four down to local practitioners, have become much more aware of and sensitive to work-life balance issues. So they're pretty focused on trying to create an environment that their employees are going to be able to thrive in. Even back when I was at KPMG as the managing partner, one of my responsibilities was to try and create an environment that our people would feel good about and
Yeah.
not feel like we were working them to death. But having said all that, accounting is a seasonal, deadline-driven business, and whether you're in audit, tax, or other aspects of the profession, there are going to be times where you're going to be working some overtime. But one of the points I make in the book is, don't believe all the myths, right, about 80-hour weeks year round, because in my experience, they're simply not true. And there's
Right.
never been a better time from a work-life balance standpoint to enter a profession where firms are very focused on creating that positive experience for their employees.
Yeah.
That's a quite a contrast from back when I started, where the mindset was more like, we're going to do whatever it takes to serve our client, and if that means working 24/7, we'll work 24/7. So we've
Right.
come a long way. There's still some work to be done, but I think from a trend line perspective, things are getting a lot better.
Yeah. And for you to, I respect the fact that for you to write this book, understanding, right, starting where you just used a pen and pencil on paper to now, utilizing technology. So you truly understand how this can work for folks, right? And so sharing that knowledge is awesome to folks out there to understand what they're going to get themselves into. And that, yeah, there's going to be times where it's overtime, but at the same time, this profession has so much opportunity, and then you could go in different paths. You could start at KPMG, right, and branch off from there, and open up your own practice or whatever it may be.
I'll share. So chapter one of my book is, why accounting is a terrific profession. And I go through some of those factors, and sure, you can make a good living, but it's not just about the financial rewards. There's other aspects. I mean, it's very interesting work, challenging work. It provides a platform for continuous lifelong learning and growth. It offers you a seat at the table, right? Whether you're the CFO of a company or the partner at the accounting firm, you're literally in the boardroom when strategic decisions are getting made, right on the
Yep.
leading edge of corporate America in terms of advances in business and technology. So it's pretty fun, it's pretty exciting. And starting in accounting can take you other places. I tell the story in
Yeah.
the book of a gentleman who worked for our firm. He stayed at the firm about 4 years. He wound up moving to an insurance company as an accountant, but rose up through the ranks of that company, eventually got promoted into other management roles, and wound up becoming the CEO of Cigna Corporation, a Fortune 50 company. I tell another story in the book about a friend of mine, John Nicholas, who, loves sports in general and baseball in particular. And John's an accountant, but he pursued his passions to become the CFO of the Philadelphia Phillies. So every day John goes to work at Citizens Bank Ballpark, a
Yeah.
job he loves, and he goes to all the games. So you really, because every industry, every company of any size needs accountants, you can kind of pursue your personal passions. Maybe you like technology, retail, um, pharmaceutical industry. I mean, pick it, and you can go work there as an accountant for a company, or you can stay in public accounting and serve those types of clients. So a lot of different career paths, and we haven't even touched on things like forensic, internal
Right.
audit, personal financial planning. There's just many avenues to pursue your passion with an accounting degree.
Yes, Jerry Maginnis, Advice for a Successful Career in the Accounting Profession. So check out that book. I sure am. Jerry, really appreciate you coming on today and sharing this because it's very relevant to me and talking about your whole journey. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me, Chris. It's been a pleasure to chat. And one of the chapters in the book is I talk about character traits that will help you be successful. And I won't give away too much of what's in there, but those are kind of things I learned during my career. And I think your readers may find that interesting because in my experience, being the smartest person in the room or where you went to college, has little to do with your success. It's some of those softer skills and some of those character traits and attributes that I talk about in the book that I think really can lead to a successful career long term. So, Greg, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, for sure, Jerry. Thanks again. Take care. To the audience, we'll be back very soon with another special guest. Thanks for listening in. Take care.